Israel and Turkey like were this close to going to war with each other. Israel and Turkey, like they were very like they were. So Israel just launched 8 airstrikes on an airbase in Syria, and the primary objective was to stop the Turkish troops from deploying and reactivating the facility. This was in Idlib. The strike severely damaged runways and storage buildings, but resulted in no casualties. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but the number of people interested in the story, I didn't. I knew Israel had done this. I didn't realize, and I mean, I figured out. I realized this yesterday. I mean, it was on the news, but I didn't know how big of a deal this put Israel and Turkey against each other. Turkey strongly condemned the bombing as a violation of sovereignty, and Israel was like, Israel's response was officially "Go f yourself." Like, we're not gonna let, like, we are not gonna let Syria turn into a military operation against us at some point, right? So a lot of people were wondering, will Israel and Turkey one day go to war with each other? And a lot of people think like, well, no, it's not likely. Turkey is a NATO country. What the hell? Like that doesn't make any sense. That's not going to happen. But the fact that it almost Israel and, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the major escalations that people are predicting that will at some point happen between Israel and Turkey, and we're already seeing something like this. Um, I mean, imagine if some Turkish soldiers died in this attack. That would be a major escalation. So I don't know. I wanted to see what you guys think about this, because this a lot of Israelis sometimes come in the chat here on our YouTube like, hey, after the Islamic Republic, we need to be focusing on Turkey. Turkey is going to be next. Turkey is going to be our next main enemy. Turkey, Turkey, Turkey. So many Israelis in the chat mentioned that. And I didn't know how seriously to take those comments. And I mean, after this attack here, it seems like, yeah, tensions are very, very high between Israel and Turkey. And given how much Turkey is interested into moving into Syria, very aggressively, and being having a lot more impact there, and how much Israel sees that as a security threat. I was wondering if you guys think that this is going to eventually escalate between like a war between Turkey and Israel, and what do you think about the details of this attack, and why did Israel do this, and was it the right move? Is Israel I mean, I agree. I think Israel is very right to be concerned about this, but I was just wondering what you guys think. So yeah.
All right. Next to speak on this topic, we have Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy.
My biggest concern is, as you mentioned, the fact that Turkey is a member of NATO. The last thing we want is for NATO to be activated, and then we have to decide, because the United States is practically NATO. So, who do we decide on to support? Not to mention, as far as I'm concerned, Turkey started this. Israel is defending itself. It has every reason to be concerned. What's happening with Turkey trying to do what they're trying to do with Syria. As far as I'm concerned, we need to remove Turkey from NATO because they're being ruled by the Durkas. So that's just what I think. If anyone has any additional input, I would be happy to hear.
All right. Next on this topic is Kill. Go ahead, Kill. Do you guys see the little kitty? I just saw it. All right. Oh, there you are. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a little microphone at the bottom, and you may have to give it permission. This is your first time coming to the screen. Go ahead, Kill. All right. What we're gonna do is do you hear me?
I lost the internet.
Hello. I
Yeah,
hear.
do you hear me?
I hear you. Go ahead.
Not very good. Right? I'm gonna.
Okay, we hear you, but the audio quality is not very good. Maybe you could try playing around with it, and then we'll come back.
About now.
Okay,
Is now is better?
yes.
Okay, so I missed what Kathy said. But I just wanted to add that I'm not very sure that this was targeted just as a signaling to the Turks not to rebuild the base, because the attacks were very specific. I mean, there were 8 attacks in a very specific spot, and rebuilding like just a road for planes is very easy. So it seems like there was something more than this. Also, it apparently was some sort of secret information that was told by the Mossad to Trump and whatnot. I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I think maybe there was something more to it.
Your audio, okay, so I think I think we got what you mean, but your audio is really hard to understand. It goes that I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We want to have you here. So if you could figure out how to fix your audio for next time it's your turn, we would love to have. We would love if you could figure out what the issue is and then fix it. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on this topic, we have Nathani. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think regarding the question of whether war is inevitable between Israel and Turkey, I don't think it is inevitable, but there are certainly some alarming signs. So one is obviously Erdogan has sort of split with what has been the traditional, post-Ottoman Turkish posture towards Israel, which was quite cooperative, and there was a lot of actual military cooperation as well. So Erdogan has broken from that. So that's one problem. And then the other problem is that what I'm hearing out of Turkey is that the media is obsessed with Israel. And is pumping a lot of anti-Israel narratives into the sort of the discourse over there. So at the same time, Erdogan himself, I think the indication is that he's also quite unpopular. So I don't know. I don't know what the sort of post-Erdogan Turkey is going to look like. I think it's still up in the air. But there is a possibility that a more sensible leadership emerges that isn't constantly using Israel as an excuse for their own internal dysfunction.
Sid, before we go to the next person, I want to. I was away when Kathy was speaking, saying that we should kick Turkey out of NATO. My understanding is that NATO would not want that because of the geographical access that Turkey gives NATO to. I don't know, the area. Like it's so important for NATO. I mean, uh, much of what NATO is about requires access to the areas that Turkey gives them access to. And so many of the things that NATO is about would become impossible if geographically they did not have access to the areas that Turkey gives them access to, like especially in the Mediterranean Sea. And but I mean, I mean, Turkey and their positioning next to Russia. I mean, if you think NATO's main point is to be a defense against Russia, then Turkey becomes an essential part of NATO. Regardless of who's there, they can't afford to lose them. Is that your understanding?
So I think Fizz just said mentioned the Bosphorus Strait. Yeah, Turkey is incredibly strategic geographically, and that the connection they owning the connection between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean is just a massive a position of strength. So Turkey is it's a lot to give up for NATO. I mean, there's just no denying its strategic value. So yeah, I mean, I would much rather see different leadership in Ankara than to see Turkey as an enemy. I think Turkey is a dangerous enemy, dangerous for Israel and dangerous for the West. But if that's what happens, if that's the course that they're on, there's not much that Israel can do about it. But yeah, I think that just saying kick them out of NATO is I think a misunderstanding of its strategic value.
Okay,
All
who's
right.
next?
Next on this topic, we have Homan. Go ahead, Homan.
I just want to say NATO doesn't mean if Turkey goes to war with anyone, NATO going to defend them. NATO is defensive alliance. So anybody get attacked, first they're going to consult and then they're going to defend the country. Israel and Turkey are going to war. They are at war at the moment. What via proxies in Syria. So if you have the Turkey's position, he always support Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and the other jihadi group. So they are already at war, but via proxy. But Israel not gonna attack Turkey just because they are allied with state, and the NATO not gonna throw Turkey anyway because they are asset to the NATO, as they are kind of around the heartland. If you read Geopolitical, that's necessary to the USA strategic position in the region. So the war could continue, in my opinion, in proxies in Syria, in Gaza, in everywhere else. But I don't think anybody, and even Turkey, not going to attack Israel. They may have a big army, but they are not. They don't have any independent air force, or they all American air force, and the navy is not very powerful either. So I don't think Turkey gonna attack Israel directly. I don't think Israel gonna attack Turkey anyway. But the war gonna continue as proxy war. So that's we're gonna have for this foreseeable future.
Yes, it would take a lot. And there's another problem that they would have. They would have to do it without the USA, because when the USA wanted to go after Iran, NATO said, "Oh, we don't want any part of it." So if NATO tries to do anything to Israel, US might say, "Oh, we don't want to have any part of it." And you know what? I'm going to stop chipping in. I'm going to cut all funds because you guys aren't funding yourself, and I'm not going to fund this. So they could see themselves very, very harshly affected if they even tried to try to bring the Security Council or whatever in on this. This is just my estimation, but Jeff might have something to say on this. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, all good points. It's actually a very significant issue. So what do you have? You have an Israeli strike on a airbase that's about, I want to say it's like between 40, like 25 and 45 miles from the Turkish border, right? It has particular routes that link Aleppo, Hama, and one other I can't rightly remember. So you have 8 airstrikes. They hit the runway, storage facilities, hangars. That was all kind of rebuilt as part of some rehabilitation work. There is no casualties, although there's material damage. And Israel then rightly, outlined it and took responsibility for the strike. So what was Israel's issue? Israel had stated that Israel and Syria had this status quo in security matters, which Syria was on the verge of breaching by permitting Turkish troops to deploy to an airbase near Aleppo. And Israel understandably warned that they would view that as a threat to their security. Well, why? Well, so, in part and parcel of the reason why, at least from an external observer's perspective, at least part of the significant reasons why Israel views Turkey from a deep level of suspicion above and beyond competing, well, this kind of underwrites the competing interests. I mean, Erdogan's government has long been, you know, critical, characterized as like being representative of or responsive to increased political Islamic roots. So the AKP, and has maintained, in some cases, support for Hamas, has hosted senior Hamas officials there, and used strongly anti-Israeli rhetoric. So, I mean, you have Israel, which has no strategic depth, looks at all that and goes, shit, we're already fighting against Hamas. We had the worst terrorist attack against us since the Holocaust on October 7th. We're in this knockdown, drag out existential fight against the Mullah regime, now regime remnants. And we're trying to manage all of these things. And now we have to deal with this new issue, which is potentially, Turkish, increasing its presence in Syria, which, Israel is understandably wants to keep an eye on and put in a bottle. And not least of which is that the leader of Syria has some Islamist ties to them, right? So it's not unreasonable that they have that issue. They have those concerns are legitimate. That said, Turkey also, as many rightly pointed out, occupies a geostrategic location, right? Strait of Bosphorus, I just mispronounced it. A couple other things. And this is something that we have to manage. Also, you have to be concerned about things like members of the autocratic bloc amplifying any point of tension or friction between different elements of a broader Western coalition. In this case, our Israeli allies and Turkey, that's a member of NATO. Not the least of which is Putin would love to sit there and see a collapse in Syria and a power vacuum, because he would love to have reestablish his control in that area. Right? I mean, those are all these things that we're juggling. It also illustrates in no uncertain detail the previous point that was mentioned by, say, Shauna and Uncle Coping, the globalization of dealing with a broader globalist threat. Right? Think about it. You have all these Islamic fundamentalists flooding into Turkey, initially like a decade or two ago, the northeast part of Turkey initially, and they're starting to have more and more impact in Turkey. Yeah, that's something that's concerning. That's kind of, the things you got to juggle. It's also why I would like to sit there and see the Mullah regime remnants obliterated quickly, so we can then, and their proxies, so our Israeli allies and others in the region are not stretched so thin with regards to dealing with threats from everywhere. Maybe then they wouldn't have to act so decisively, right? Seems like.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff. Next to speak on this topic, we have Kat. Go ahead, Kat.
So a couple of things. This was definitely pointed at the Turks, but also at Syria. Just to remind you, the first thing Israel did was bomb their air force, and that was specifically an attempt to start it anew. Also, I want to remind you all that this specific location is right on the way to Iran. So if Israel wants to do anything, or America as well, from this location specifically, we need this route open. We cannot have the Turks there. No way. And this is also one very important thing. And also, the Turks are not supposed to be there. I don't know if they admitted it or not. I think they didn't, but maybe I'm not updated by now. Things go so fast. Also, something which it seems unconnected, and I'm not sure, but I don't believe it's unconnected. At the same day or a day after, there was a declaration that they have nuclear weapon, not nuclear weapon, like nuclear material still. And this, remind you all, it's after Israel bombed their reactor or facility or whatever and made sure that also that it's buried very deep and no one reaches it. So, and it's also, I think, uh, okay. So a couple of points. The How do you call this word when you make your enemies fear you so they don't attack? I got this word now.
Deterrence.
Yes, thank you. So the deterrence of America and also Israel, uh, let's face it, it's down. And I think that people might get their ideas that, oh, we can have plans now, we can have plans. And Israel just told them, we're still following, we're taking care of business. Don't you think? This was a very clear warning. An a runway is very easy to fix, yes. That's why it was a warning. But also, I think it was a couple of warehouses and stuff. It was mainly a warning, but it was also a little bit against, like, not against, but to show some, I don't know how to say it. Like, it's a tiny fuck you to the US, but I don't believe it's really that, because I think I have one reason, which might be just me reading wrong, but I saw tankers in that specific locations hours before, American tankers, which I don't see at that location every day. So it might be actually very much coordinated. I don't know, but it's just one thing that I saw. So um, really love seeing that, because that's how Israel is acting for years, like taking care of some specific stuff, maybe too late sometimes. But whenever something is dangerous, no matter what the US says, no matter what anyone says, this is getting taken care of. And that's very good that the enemies know that. Yep.
That's what Israelis are famous for.
Exactly. And we
Yes,
need to
I
remind them that we're not sleeping, you know?
Yeah. Good points.
would
All right.
agree, and I'll say that they wouldn't, like, the US would know. Like, we can have this political blah blah blah, but the US would know that they're gonna fly. We have airplanes going all over this area. They're not just gonna, do stuff without talking to us. We could have provisions where these are military airplanes. We don't want friendly fire. We would know. We would absolutely know. Like, if they wanted to be like, no, we have forces in the area. We have an operation going on there. We have an investigation going on there. We have agents in there. It would stop, right? Because you're not going to do something like that without talking to each other. So I'm pretty sure the U.S. knew, and it's kind of like this. Like, one of the things I said before is, like, this could be like one of those things where you have to have a certain messaging for crowd at home, but in reality, they're getting along fine. And with this, next on this topic, we have Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy.
So I get that Turkey is a strategic ally. That's fine. I get it. But what do you do when they put you in a situation where you have to potentially join in and attack another ally because that ally supposedly attacked them to defend themselves? So who do you pick? Who do you pick to defend here? And we're already in the middle of a war against Iran. That just makes the situation escalates the situation worse. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation here.
Yes, read. Uh, Jewish Samantha wanted me to read out that Turkey has Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu held in pretrial detention in Marmara prison. I have heard that Turkey has been taking candidates and putting them in jail. These are authoritarian moves. Now, is there corruption there by some politicians? Is there some reason? I don't know. Like, I can't get into the specifics, but I have seen a lot of chatter about not necessarily this specific case, but other cases which leads me to indicate maybe it's more political persecution than corruption because of all the chat. And with that, we move on to Yehuda. Go ahead, Yehuda.
Yes, can you hear me? Does the mic work? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So to Turkey, first, Cat is right with the uranium. There was an asset program where they wanted also reactor to make bombs because I taught in another emission that every country that was only civilian use nuclear energy wants thorium because in that cycle you don't produce plutonium, you can't make bombs, you need zero enriched uranium. And a little bit from the destroyed reactor U-235 was in the storage of this airport, and this airport was also a landing zone for the Turkish army. So the problem with the Turkish army is they start now to pay Hezbollah, pay them, so they are for Iran, and the reason are the Kurds. That's why Erdogan wanted to join Iran against the United States because the Kurds got armed, and he hates the Kurds because he hates the PKK. And you know also that Jolani was Daesh, this Al Jara, and he is sponsored by Turkey also. And another thing that is that Turkey is flirting all the way with China. That's why they are having joint military work together. Also, I wanted to say that Turkey wants over them to reintroduce the Muslim Brotherhood back into Egypt. You know that Erdogan's party is based on Muslim Brotherhood, like Hamas. That's why he has Hamas at home in Turkey. And Turkey was flirting with Russia because Hungary doesn't have a seaport. They have only land borders, so they need Russian oil. And the one that was delivering it to Hungary was Turkey. And the rhetoric that he wants to conquer Jerusalem tells our media he owns the media. He forbids there's no media in Turkey. Everybody who is saying anything about Erdogan comes to prison. It's a totalitarian state. It's an Islamistic state now. But it's like everywhere in the EU, when you have a fuck up, sorry for my French, as a politician, they go on Palestine. You saw the snap election with Macron went to Palestine, Ireland went Palestine, because they have stupid decisions due to Klaus Schwab in their countries. That's what I wanted to say.
I appreciate that insight. The PPK is a problem. Sometimes I wonder if this trilateral meeting is Turkey maybe wants some help and funding or whatever to deal with the PPK. Pakistan wants to deal with Afghanistan, and of course Saudi wants help with the Kurds, with the Houthis. My bad. And they have had some mobilizations for joint training and all that. Thank you for your insights. And next we go to Shauna.
Yeah, just to back up what Samantha was talking about, I don't know about that specific example, but there is crackdowns on Turkey inside of Turkey, and I get that maybe people don't necessarily care about Turkey's internal shit when they're trying to be protective against Turkey, but it is a factor. I do want to be clear though that there's crackdowns on a couple different scales. So there's crackdowns on kind of people who are more liberal in the true sense of the word, meaning people who believe in liberty. And then there's also crackdowns from any type of Durkas that Erdogan sees as a threat. So though both of those crackdowns are happening, and I only have a kind of a tertiary knowledge of it, but it's something that I've seen talked about and kind of in the weeds. So but it's been going on for a few years and it's happening from a few different things. And so crackdowns it seems like Erdogan is mostly, or however you say his names, he is mostly just basically solidifying power in a lot of ways. It seems like to me he's just kind of a Muslim form of Putin in some ways. That's kind of how I read him.
Muslim
All
Putin, I
right.
like
I
that.
think I think with that we have all the tools on this topic. I think we should check for super chats.
Yes, we got 3 super chats, and I think our super chat counter is broken. So I don't know how to pronounce your name. Deeb. Thank you so much for the super chat. Saying to what degree, if at all, is the 1,000-year non-aggression pact between Turkey and Iran still active? So I looked this up because I didn't know what you're referring to, and apparently this is, I mean, because I'm pretty sure like something that ancient is not relevant. I mean, I was right. There's no non-aggression, no 1,000-year non-aggression treaty that exists between Turkey and the Islamic Republic, at least, or Iran or the Islamic Republic. The the non-aggression pact that they have is based on something they signed in 1639, 1639 Treaty of Zuhab, and the July 1937 Sadabad Pact. So those are it's based on those. So they're not based on 1,000 year non-aggression pact, which I don't even know what it's referring to, but I might be wrong. And thank you for the super chat. By the way, so one thing interesting between Turkey and the Islamic Republic is that they are, I think, 2 out of the 3 expansion, well, maybe 2 out of 4. If we think about the expansionist powers right now that exist in the world, let me know, guys, if I'm counting them all. So the expansionist power that exists in the world right now, all the powers that are trying to expand beyond the border, all the nation state beyond, I'm not talking about militias or terrorist groups or the Islamic world as a whole, but we're talking Putin, CCP, Erdogan, and the Islamic Republic, right? So inside Iran, inside Turkey, inside Russia and China, I think these are the nation states with leaders that are if North Korea trying to expand, yes. Jeff from Jeff, I think North Korea is just a proxy of the CCP. Not really. Okay, I think these are the 4: China, Russia, the Islamic Republic and Iran. Yeah, threat to South. Okay, expand maybe into South Korea. Okay, yeah, North Korea also expand to South Korea. Okay, sure. So that I get, yes, that would make them expansionist. Okay, so North Korea. So that's 5. But Erdogan and the Islamic Republic have this in common. I mean, I guess imperialism. I think North Korea just wants South Korea, nothing more. But the other 4 have like some imperialist agenda. That's what I would say. The 4, right? Okay, so is instant barbecue. Okay, instant barbecue with a super chat saying Damascus Durkaz actually wanted to say thank you, Israel. But I don't know. I don't know about that. Depends on the kind. Depends on the type of Durka you're talking about, right? Some of them would be happy with this, some of them would be against it. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics. The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.